Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It is time for January's wrap-up. It is time for January's wrap-up. Whoa, that's crazy to me. So I have read 12 books according to Goodreads, and 2 of them were DNFs, but I'm actually going to be counting DNFs in my stats for the year and everything. I don't do stats for the year. What am I talking about? When I do my wrap-ups and things, I'm going to be talking about my DNFs, because in previous years I kind of just skip DNFs and I don't tell you that, heck, I was reading this book for 10 hours of the 16-hour long audiobook, and because I hated it so much, I did not finish it. So I only had 6 hours to go, but I should definitely count it as a book that I attempted to read. We're gonna start with talking about my TBR and how I actually did on January's TBR. I'm not going to go through every book because a lot of the books that were on January's TBR have been read. The only 2, technically, that I'm working on. I am working on The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead, but this wasn't technically on my January TBR, and I'm working my way through it. It doesn't look like I've read much of it, but I've been picking at this for weeks. Okay? And then the 2 that were actually on my TBR, I'm about halfway through Birdie by N. West Moss, and I really just have no desire to pick it up. And that might make you think that I don't like this book. I actually do, in fact, like this book. I like Birdie. I like Birdie and Mouse. I like their relationship. I hate the grief. The grief is really hitting me, but I really like the found family aspect, and it's a really good book. I just don't like middle grade books, so I'm struggling with this one, but I do want to put this on February's, I want to finish it in February. And then the one that I didn't even start is In the Valley of the Sun by Andy Davidson. When I made my February TBR, I said that I hadn't started this, but I was planning on it. Well, little Missy, I absolutely did not read this. So I'm actually going to start a shelf over here. My bad. Over there on the bottom, where I put the books that were on my TBRs that I didn't read. So this is going to be the first book on that shelf. We're going to talk about the 12 books that I read in January. I am going to go in reverse order of how I liked these books. So I'm going to start with DNFs, go to 1 stars, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, and if there are any 5 stars. Spoiler, I've only read 1 5-star book this year. I've only finished, well, not even finished 12 books, but I only have 12 books on my Goodreads, which, if you count, I mean, I think I should get half credit for the 2 that I DNF'd, because I actually read quite a bit of both of the books before I DNF'd them. Let's just knock out the 2 that I DNF'd. I think, okay, the first one, I had on audiobook from Libby, and it is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So, no, don't come at me yet. Don't, just hear me out. I loved The Hunger Games. I actually, like, reread the entire Hunger Games trilogy in 2025 in preparation to read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and whatever the newer one is. I don't like President Snow, and I just didn't care about the story at all. I have to be somewhat intrigued by the characters, and I was not. So it just drug on and on and on. An audiobook as well. I picked books from, right here, from my horror and mystery jar and my mystery thriller reading challenge from Alexis. I'll link her down below. All of the books, all of the prompts that she has, I have picked out an audiobook for, because I have an extensive audiobook collection that I have been neglecting. And for that, I think it was Serial Killer Point of View. I was supposed to read You Look Beautiful Tonight by L.R. Jones. It was like stalker and serial killer, and that sounded so good, but I was so bored. I was supposed to read a nonfiction book, and I read Ashley versus WWE, the story of wrestler Ashley Massaro. I don't think I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. I never rate nonfiction. Like, I feel icky rating nonfiction, so I just don't do it. But for this in particular, I won't say that I didn't like it. I didn't not like it. Like, I did like it to an extent, but I think that it was more of an expose on WWE, and that was very intriguing to me because I used to be a WWF fangirl. I mean, back when it was WWF, so I'm just aging myself. But that was something that me and my dad would watch together when I was a kid, and it kind of got very scripted, and I'm pretty sure it was scripted the whole time, but as I grew up, the show kind of grew up and became WWE, and it was all scripted. I mean, I would sit there, and I loved the drama of just watching them shit talk each other and say mean things, like hurtful, rude things, and it was all super staged. You could tell it was staged. But then the fighting just went downhill, and I just lost interest. But I did enjoy the expose on WWE. However, in a lot of ways, I do think that this was a little bit unjust in the fact that it said that it's about Ashley and her life, and although you get snippets of her life, I do think that it kind of went in a certain direction that was more about WWE as a whole. And I get where the author was coming from, trying to justify, trying to reason with how we got to the place that we got to in Ashley's life. And it's very heartbreaking. It's very sad what happened to her. That's all I'm going to say. Then, I think we only have one star book. So let's just get her out of the way. This is sad because this is one of my most favorite authors. Like, most favorite. I love her horror novels, especially her contemporary horror novels. I'm sorry, Darcy, but Where He Can't Find You by Darcy Coates. What I was expecting was this red thread Stitcher type of serial killer horror novel. What I got in this mammoth of a book was a boring small town that apparently can't do police work because the teenagers all band together to find out who the Stitcher is, and from the very beginning they tell you who the Stitcher is. Only the payouts of what actually happens is not there. I was so disheartened by who or what the Stitcher was, and I really just wanted a fun serial killer horror novel. Like, give me a little slasher. This was not it. It also read very much like a young adult because most of this book is coming from a teenager or a group of teenagers, and I could not care less. Number 2 and number 3 are both 2 stars. 2 stars. Yeah. Okay, Ghost Radio by Leopoldo Gout is a horror novel. And For Twice in My Life by Annette Christie, oh my god, this one burns. This one burned so bad because this was on my 5-star predictions list. I thought For Twice in My Life was gonna give me like One True Love's vibes by TJR, but no, my friend, not even close. This is fake. This is a forced love triangle. This is just awful. And Ghost Radio, I do think that there's an audience for Ghost Radio. I just don't think it was me, because it reads like callers are calling in and sharing their scary stories on this radio show. And so much of this book came from different perspectives and felt like short stories coming to the radio show. And then there is like an overarching mystery horror-esque part of it, but I did not care. I also felt like the perspective just randomly, if you like the short story media type of things, which I absolutely hate, you might enjoy this one, especially if you like short story horror novels. You might like them. I personally did not, and will be unhauling both of these as well. Okay, now we're to 3 stars. This 3-star book was very, very disappointing to me. Like, 3 stars is not awful. It's fine. I didn't hate it, but I also don't think there's anything special in First Down by Grace Riley. here's the thing. It felt very juvenile. It felt very high school. And yes, it takes place on college campus, so it should feel more college, but it doesn't. You follow Bex, who goes to this party and she randomly kisses James because her ex-boyfriend, like, he just dumped her, was at this party and she didn't think he would be there. So she randomly kisses James to be like, oh yeah, I'm already over you, whatever. She's also sloppy and drunk. And then Bex and James start this forbidden, but not really forbidden relationship, because James says that he's not friends with her ex. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. This was the first book I read in January. But he's like, yeah, we're not even really friends, but they are teammates. And then throughout the book, you kind of see what kind of a person James is and what kind of a person her punk ex was. And I don't know, I never felt the chemistry between Bex and James as much as I full-heartedly wanted to love this. There was just something missing for me. Is this gonna be the first book that I run to when I need like a palate cleanser or when I need a fun romance? No. It was messy without being messy enough for me. Like, if you're gonna do a messy romance, like, jump in, plunge into the messiness. Don't have it try to be like a sweet, fun time. Either it's gonna be messy, it's gonna be drama, which I love in romances, or it's gonna be like slow and cute and fun, which I also love in romances. But I don't think it quite went messy enough for me, because I think it was trying to be messy and dark and all that, but it didn't quite go there. It kind of tiptoed around the messy situation, and I just wanted more. And I really was rooting for this book to go there. I do own the rest of the series, so y'all are gonna come at me in the comments, but I'm gonna keep this one with the rest of the series and hopefully get to the rest of the series at some point this year. That way I can decide as a whole if I'm going to keep them or not. I am also a tried and true believer that if you don't like a book in a series, that you can DNF the series, or if they're like standalone but they're interconnected, then you are allowed to unhaul the first one and go on with the series. Why am I not doing that? I can't explain it. Okay, and then a 4-star book for me was Bat Eater and Other Names for Chorazing by Kylie Lee Baker. I was not prepared for this book. I was not. So you follow Chorazing during the pandemic. What? A pandemic book, Alita? What? Yeah, I know. I'm shocked just like you. Cora sees her sister be murdered. Let's not put it lightly. She was pushed off the train tracks, like off the platform onto the train tracks, and the train killed her. Like, ran her over because the train didn't have time to stop. So that person that pushed her, that was a murder. I'm sorry. That was a murder. That is how this book starts. And Chorazing, she is a crime scene cleaner upper person. She, oh my God. So, God, how do I talk about this without offending some people? So Cora Zing, she is of Asian descent during the pandemic. And I don't know if you remember, at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, a lot of people were very, very hateful. They claimed that COVID-19 was made in a factory in China and that China was trying to like get rid of the world. You know, like they caused the pandemic, and some of the conspiracies out there say that they did it on purpose and that they were trying to rid the world of 90% of the population. That means that the Asian Americans that have always lived in America, that do currently live in America, that did at the time, they were victims of some awful, awful hate crimes. Like, disgusting hate crimes. And this takes place in New York City when the pandemic was starting to rampage. And Cora Zing and her friends start to be stalked, start to be violated, start to be attacked by a mystery serial killer, start to be hunted by this serial killer that has such a hate for Asian people that this person, this serial killer, is targeting people of Asian descent. And one thing that I guess people say is that Chinese people are bat eaters. And this was so heavy. This was so hard to read. I look back at this and I'm like, part of me wants to give it a 5 stars because like the hate and the terror and the horror in this book was spot on, and I don't know what else I could want from a horror novel like this. The more I talk about it, the more I want to give it 5 out of 5 stars. So I think that I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, actually gave me anxiety. So I do not have a hateful bone in my body. So the anxiety that I felt for the characters in the story, and the fact that obviously it's a work of fiction, but there has to be some truth woven in there, it hits so close to home because I know that people were getting targeted just because of their heritage, and that just because of their ethnicity, and that's not okay with me. It just brought a lot of like in me, a lot of rage. And this is my last one. It is what was my first 5-star of the year, and it's definitely a different tone than Bat Eater, but this is my favorite book of January. So I'm trying to do these TBRs so that I can go back and look. Obviously both of these are amazing, and the more that I think about Bat Eater, the more I want to be like, oh my god, that was amazing. So it's definitely a 5-star. It's not on Goodreads yet, but I will change it to a 5-star because the more I think about it, the more perfect it is. Anyways, Best Served Hot by Amanda Elliott. This was my first 5-star read of the year. I also do think that it's my favorite of the month, but like I said, either of these could really be my favorite of the month. This one was just more like hypnotizing and more like and lovey-dovey. Obviously, I don't want a lovey-dovey from a horror novel. But this follows two rival food critics. You follow Julie Zimmerman, who is on like Instagram as a food critic. She kind of does it as a hobby. So it's like my booktube channel, you know, I have 300 followers and that's amazing, and I am so happy that you're here. And if you're new around here, like, what are you doing? Subscribe. But if you're not new around here and you're one of those 300, I'm so honored that like I'm gonna tear up. I'm gonna cry. And if you are here and you're not subscribed, like, let's be friends. But she actually has like 50,000 followers. So she has quite a bit more than me. But she, you know, relatively is a baby. You know, like Instagrammer. But there's also Bennett. He is like an actual food critic for a magazine. So she's kind of doing it on her own, you know, like she buys her own food, she uses her cell phone, she, you know, like, yeah. And his style is much more, you know, like, I'm gonna be all, you know, like suited up, I'm gonna, you know, take notes. Although he doesn't always take notes, but he never has his phone out during the meal. And they run into each other at one of these like food festivals, and they're kind of like snarky to each other, but someone films it and it gets posted on Instagram, like Instagram Reels or something. And they decide, since now they kind of have bad rays of sunshine, bad mojo towards each other. They're like, okay, we have to make it better so that my magazine doesn't fire me and so that my followers don't leave me. So they're just like, okay, let's start going to the same restaurants and being a food critic at the same restaurant at the same time. And we don't even have to sit at the same seat. It's just more of like a business stunt type of thing. But then they keep going to the same restaurants and they keep planning it together, and then, you know, she loses her seat at one of the restaurants and he's like, no, just come sit with me. And she's like, no, we're not supposed to sit together. And, you know, it's like slow and steady little steps like that where, like, at first they really strongly dislike each other, but they slowly and madly start to fall in love with each other because they finally sit at the same table, and then she's like taking pictures and he's just like, can I just dig in? Like, I just want to eat my food. And she's like, what about the pictures? Like, don't you get pictures? Don't you take notes on your phone? And sometimes he takes notes on a notepad, and other times he doesn't take any notes at all. And she's like, how can you have two such weird styles? Like, and it's just so, it was cute. It just made me feel so sweet. And I actually read this in 2 days, which for me as a mom, that's really quick read. I used to sit down and read books real quick, but not these days. But when I do my end of the year, like, best book of each month, it's gonna be one of these. In this moment, it's best served hot, just because this one just made my heart happy, and sometimes you just need a little extra oomph of happiness, and I definitely got that there. But I hope you enjoyed my lengthy wrap up. If you've read any of these, let me know in the comments below. Tell me if you agree with me or disagree with me. You know, reading is subjective, so it's okay if you disagree with me. And if I said that I didn't like one of your favorite books, then I'm so happy for you. I love that you loved it. And it just didn't work for me for some reason. But don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you don't want to leave a lengthy comment, just send me a heart, because we're going into February, which is Heart Month or Love Month or Valentine's Day or all that, you know, like commercial stuff. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye.